Well, good evening, everyone. It's very nice to be here with you again and with some of you for the first time. Welcome, our new friends. We are going tonight to talk about forgiveness. And even though it's a word that it's very common, we hear all the time, we say all the time, we sometimes even ask for forgiveness, and sometimes we give forgiveness, right? We It's a little deeper, a deeper subject that we should definitely address. So there are two questions that I'd like us to start thinking about. And really sincerely, you don't have to tell me, just each one of us will just think. Do we feel in our hearts right now any guilt, anything, or resentment? And before we even think about it, what are those things? What are guilt and resentment? When we talk about guilt, let's think first that we all exercise all the time, not the exercise, but another kind of exercise, the exercise of learning. We are all the time having experiences in our lives to learn something. That's what we're here for. And this process of learning, we make mistakes, and people make mistakes towards us. It's just something that sometimes we don't need to dramatize that. That's what it is. That's how we learn. We even learn the things that we should not do if we're good students, good apprentices, right? But when we make a mistake, sometimes we hold in our hearts guilt if it's us. Other times, people will make the mistake or will offend us, and it's hard sometimes to let it go. So that's the resentment. So let's establish that so we know what we're talking about, guilt and resentment. We're going to hear that many times tonight. Okay? So I ask again for us to think, do we feel that in our hearts? Okay. We all do to a certain extent, even if we don't sometimes realize it, because we interact all the time. There are misunderstandings, there are miscommunications, right? There are situations that we don't know why suddenly that happened. Our everyday is like that. It is part of our spiritual growth. We live in society, we live with other people in our families here, right? And every time that we have some sort of issue, we might feel that way. Oops. So these are just red flags for us to refine ourselves. We are here to learn and grow spiritually. For us to reach that, we have to be aware, pay attention. What are the things that this is teaching me? Well, there are also different kinds of mistakes with a small or a big intensity. Some things are very easy to let it go. And other things, so they transition very quickly. They hit to our hearts, and that's why sometimes we don't even have a chance to identify that they are there, but they are. And other times, they stick to us, and they hurt, and they are toxic, and they can become, those monsters under the bed when kids are, afraid of, right? Then we say, face those monsters. Those are those monsters for us because if we don't really address them, they become really powerful. And it's important that we recognize them when they exist. Okay? And then the question is, when I say we all do, are there people that don't feel at all? Unfortunately, there are, right? And fortunately, it's not very many. I mean, compared to the amount of the population. But yes, there are people that have no guilt, no resentment, and no feelings. But this is a problem, right? It's a mental disorder. Okay, we're not going to be addressing because they are completely insensible. They have no clue of cruelty, and they apologize because that's what they're supposed to do to live in society. They learn the code, they'll do it. It doesn't mean anything because they don't feel anything. Okay, but we're not going to be talking about that. We are going to be talking about the norm, more of the biggest amount of people that do have feelings and feel guilt and feel the resentment, because otherwise we cannot address those issues, right? We have to think of people just like us, normal people, that everybody has feelings, right? So let's see how to deal with guilt and resentment. Guess forgiveness. And it's wonderful here because in the Old English, look how beautiful this is. Forgive is a compound word of for, meaning completely, plus given in Old English, to give. Forgive means give completely. And it's interesting because as I was studying in Portuguese, it's the same thing. The word in Portuguese, we do the exact same separation of the word. Okay? And why is this important? Because think about it, forgives to give completely. Well, because forgiveness is the child of love. We can only forgive when we are able to love, starting from ourselves, starting from self love and self forgiveness. It's an action related to that towards others. And only because of love that we are able to transform what is bad, what is negative, into something positive, right? So we're able to overcome the situation when we really learn how to forgive. Is that easy to forgive? Well, sometimes it feels like it, but really, most of the time, when it's something really deep and it hurts, it's harder, but it's not impossible. God never gives us anything that is impossible for us to do, right? So it will depend in terms of the length of time and the patience and the capacity of loving, and depend on how serious the mistake is, and also the relationship that we have. Because if a stranger come and will say something bad to me, will swear at me, well, I'll be in shock, it will hurt, but you know, maybe it doesn't matter as much as if it were like one of my children, for example. That it hurts in different ways. It's bad, no matter what. But do you feel the difference between the situations that we go through? Each one is unique. Each one hurts in a different way. They can all hurt, and all, depending on what it is, it can take different lengths of time for us to address and be able to forgive. So it can take a day, a month, a year. It can take a reincarnation, right? And it can take several lives. And what will determine that? Our capacity of forgiving. That's all. We can blame everybody else. We can blame, but there's no blame here. So we'll start from the smaller things, the easy thing. And right there, we'll see how even there are nuances, there are differences in the way we forgive. Somebody steps on your foot, hurts. The person apologizes. It takes maybe a few seconds, if you're a nice person, to forgive. I'm sorry. Okay, that's fine. But then that person or another person step on your ingrown toenail. Ooh, now we're talking. Now it takes maybe a few more minutes, at least until the pain, goes away. Then you have this beautiful, brand new, fancy, expensive shoe that you are paying 10 installments, right? You're still paying that shoe. And the person comes, it's an accident still, but steps and damage the shoe. So now not only you have the pain, and God forbid is also in your toenail, right? Well, see, it's a very silly example, but it gives us the idea how forgiveness can take a longer way when things are different values for us. Maybe somebody has this and doesn't care, brand new shoe, and that doesn't matter. So don't take that personally. You might be that kind of person that it doesn't matter if somebody steps on your brand new shoe. Doesn't matter. Okay. Traffic is another example, a very simple, everyday situation that somebody will cut you off. You get upset. The person, I'm sorry. And if you're in a good day, you say, oh, okay, fine, right? If you're not in a good day, it might take a few more minutes. But if somebody hits your car, then just a wave is not going to be enough. Then you need to go outside. You need a mediator, sometimes the police, and sometimes can even get physical, right? Physical aggression. So, okay, everybody, follow me here, right? Does this happen to you guys sometimes? Okay. And we're talking about forgiveness. We're going to think that it's crazy, right? Those things require forgiveness. It does. Because how many of us here have stayed a whole day upset and being grumpy and with some situation just like that and created, a zero events, a certain amount of events that day because of little things like that. So it's worth talking about it. But then we are talking now. Now we go to some serious stuff, serious offense. The time, sorry for the typo, the time uh, for forgiveness now can take much longer. If somebody really betrays us, kills one of our children, does something really bad, cruel to one person that we love or to ourselves, well, now it takes much longer. And that's what we'll be focusing on, things that are a little harder for us to deal with. The other situations are very important to us because they help us practice. Practice makes perfect, right? So if I'm able to do in the little things to forgive faster, when if I face a situation that is much harder, guess what? I'll be already, up to speed there. So how are we going to reach forgiveness? And before we talk about those steps, let's talk about those kinds of forgiveness. We are so smart, so intelligent, we human beings, right? And we are trained since we were little to be what? Polite. We apologize. We know how to act socially, at least most of the time, right? And we can really fake forgiveness, even to us. It's not only to other people. That's why the first question was, do you feel it? Do you have that in your heart? Because we we bury there somewhere. And if we don't really pay attention to find those red flags, we will stay right here where it's just limited apology for show. And I really believe in it. It's not that I'm doing that on purpose to pretend. I do it because I was taught to do it. And I do that very well. But in my heart, it's burning. And the little things, remember those monsters? That's when they start getting a little bit bigger every time. Because every time that something similar happens and I was not able to forgive that first one, that adds up to the pile. And I continue, right? Creating this situation and I don't get real. A real forgiveness comes from our soul, from our spirit, from within, from our essential being. We are immortal spirits. And if we just disguise and keep going, and it catches up with us, it gets to a point where I cannot pretend anymore. So remember that really hard situation. Can we fake a forgiveness? Somebody told me that, and I don't remember who, that they already heard somebody from this shooting last weekend in El Paso, that some family said they forgave, right? And we hear that. Only them, their hearts, with God, they know how they're feeling. Because we also learned that we need to be good Christians. Good people are not supposed to hate, are not supposed to not forgive, right? So sometimes we don't, and I'm not talking about them. I didn't even hear the news. I'm talking about us, right? So sometimes we just do not want to be that person that has in our hearts that kind of feeling, because that's not a good thing. So, do you see how this is a very big point for us? That only we can know ourselves and we can analyze where we are in this process in several situations. Because we don't want to be the person who does not forgive. But to be real, we need to continue working on those issues. And especially because, like we said, the word forgiveness almost bring with it all the religion's action behind it. So people end up thinking about forgiveness, that we people, right? About that. And really, this is beyond that. This is not just because the religions talk about it. It's because it frees ourselves from the resentment and the guilt. And we are able, if we're able to forgive, we move on and we are happier. We feel better, right? So, what does it say in the gospel? How many times shall I forgive my brother when he sins against me? Up to 7 times. Jesus answered, I tell you, not 7 times, but 70 times, 7 times. And with that in mind, we really have difficulties not to follow that. That's what we want to get. And that's the direction, obviously, right? But so for us, when we have a situation that seems really impossible, and we think about that, and we feel this small because that's not where I want to be, we need to think of a process in order to achieve day by day. And Again, we start from those little acts of kindness towards ourselves, little acts of forgiveness, self indulgence, self love, so that it helps us to get to the bigger things. Like everything in life, we start small to get big, right? Oh, so here, before we move on, I'll share with you a story that I heard in one of the talks that when I was preparing. And it's a story of a woman who goes and looks for Chico Xavier, who is the Brazilian medium, very famous, very nice person. And most of us here know him. Uh, anyway, uh, and she gets to him and says, I've been married for 30 years, and my husband is a drunk, and I'm tired of it. And no, she could look at her and say, "Oh, my sister, we just remember what Jesus said about forgiveness." And this is here, right? Forgive 7 times 7, and goes on. And she stops for a second and she says, "Wait a minute. I've been married for 30 years. I at least every year I forgave him 100 times. So that makes it 3,000 times. 7 times 70 is 409. So I'm done, right? It's okay now. I can divorce, no problem." And then she could, stops for a second, gets the intuition from his mentor, Emmanuel, and he says, well, you should be forgiving 7 times 70 each mistake. So she goes, oh my gosh. So now this is going to be impossible, right? It's forever. And he goes, yeah, keep forgiving him. And she goes, okay. A few months later, he's in a different place and she goes look for him. And then she says, do you remember me? And repeats the story. And she is in mourning. She says, my husband died. And she said, well, now I am still working on forgiving him because how did he dare to go before me? I miss him. So, anyway, I thought that was a cute story to share about the amount of times that we forgive. Anyway, so, but we have our free will. And we can decide that we do not want to forgive, or we can't. We feel that impossible, right? We like that word. It's impossible. It's too hard. I'm not doing it. Next reincarnation, I'll do it. This one is too hard. Well, guess what? We are choosing a problem. So let's work now on the process. So here we are going our way down, and then I promise we are going to switch to our way up afterwards, okay? The way down is this. Those feelings of guilt, remember, guilt is because I did it, right? Something wrong. So I feel guilty. And resentment is somebody did to me and I could not forgive. So I chose not to forgive or I couldn't forgive. The guilt will bring me this feeling of remorse if I keep feeding that uh, um, guilt in me, right? What is the remorse? The remorse is when I go like this. I keep repeating that in my mind. I repeat the situation. I tell people, and then people will tell me, and I feed that, and I just kind of spin. I cannot go anywhere. I get stuck in that situation and I don't do anything positive about it. My next step is that I start feeling so bad that I feel I'm a bad person. I don't know what I did. Why did I do that? And I start self-punishing me, right? The resentment will be the same thing, except it's towards somebody else. So I start hating the person. And from that, if I continue, oops, what did I do? Sorry. If I continue that, I want revenge because then I cannot deal with that anymore. I want to see that person to suffer because he or she made me suffer. So that's going downhill, right? Are we going down? Okay, I have to press the right button. So in this situation here, if I continue in this process, I start creating for myself dysfunctions, diseases, problems in all these areas here. Physically, psychologically, all my emotions will get messed up. Socially, I also have problems. I cannot relate to people the same way. And spiritually, oof, guess what happens? What kind of connections with the spirituality am I going to have? I can't connect with my guardian angel because the guardian angel is trying, but I close the channel there. I just want to think about it. Remember, I'm thinking about revenge and hate or remorse, self. So I'm connecting with those spirits that are with the same kind of mindset, right? Well, so like our friends, if we talk to each other, right? I say something, the person that has the same mindset will we feed each other in that feeling, right? Well, the spirits, we don't see them, but they will be close to us and they will be feeding that same feeling because that's how they feel, right? And then we start feeling that we are not worth it. So imagine I'm here in this situation and I start going down and down here and feeling that everything is really bad in my life. I don't see anything else. Because of the remorse, I'm stuck with that. I paralyze that thought in my mind, correct? So then I keep going and all this illness, all these difficulties will help me, right? Think other things that are not positive. So here, what I'm thinking now is that I am not worth it. I'd better, just end my life. And it's not the fault of those spirits that people like to think, right? It's the same thing as having a friend and I say, I'm bad, and the person repeats to me the same thing, and the same thing. What I do with that information is my responsibility. And so we can get to that point, or I can even get to the point of I don't want that person in my life anymore. I don't want that person doing anything bad anymore. And this here, really, the pain is so bad that what the person wants is to end the pain, right? Because sometimes we think it's not the person wants to kill himself or herself or somebody else. It is imagine the intense pain that the person is into. Okay? So, but then just aggravates him or herself. Okay. But God is all merciful. And all that situation that looked really bad because I couldn't forgive, I couldn't take that path and learn how to do it. And I chose not to forgive. What happens is we go to the gospel and look what it says. And we're going to analyze that, okay? Because the spirits are great. They already gave us all the information. Look at this. First of all, reconcile yourself quickly with your adversary who is taking you to court. Do it while you are still with him on the way, or he may hand you over to the judge, and the judge may hand you over to the officer, and you may be thrown into prison. I tell you the truth, you will not get out until you have paid the last penny. Well, it does sound very harsh, right? But let's think about it. Reconcile yourself. So, ourselves and reconcile with others. Okay? It's a verb, it's a reflexive verb, right? It goes me, I do it, and then I do to you. It's a, interpretation. So if I don't settle the matters with myself, it's very hard for me to be able to forgive. And then if I don't forgive, taking advantage of that person is still with me in this life. That's the point, right? What happens? The judge, which is my consciousness, not a judge, an external judge that will judge me, but myself. I know that I'm doing something bad. I'm not being able to make peace with each other, with me and the other person. So my consciousness feels guilty and takes to the judge, or and then we go to the officers, which are the good spirits. So my unconsciousness will take me to the good spirits. What do? We're able to come back, do the path backwards, not backwards because we don't go back, but the to the positivity. And how? Through reincarnation. So this prison here is our bodies that are in reincarnations after that will have, in the law of cause and effect, will have the consequences of this lack of forgiveness that I was not able to give. So when we talk about freeing ourselves, it's really freeing ourselves, right? It's not a metaphor, it's not a symbolic language, but it is something that we do to ourselves for the best or for the worst. Okay, so far? Yeah. So we talk about the reincarnations. The reincarnations in a situation like that will have the indication that we messed up before. Not because God is picking us to suffer. Mm-mm. It is because, as a consequence, I am able to come back, to return in my next reincarnation with some issues that can be more serious or less serious, that will be the therapy of forgiveness that we need. Because sometimes we don't learn from experience, good experience. We learn from the pain. And that's when that comes into place. So we have reincarnations just like that, where either a problem in our bodies, either the people that we live with in our families, those that we hurt or hurt us, that we were not able to forgive. So the forgiveness is pending. And I need that extra punch, extra opportunity in order to do the other way around, to pick forgiveness instead of non forgiveness, right? So it's a lot of pain if we make that decision. And it's us who make the decision. But then from red to green, so it's better already, right? Look what it says in the Heaven and Hell by Allan Kardec, in the Penal Code of Life to Come. Forgiveness is the way. And it's just a little piece here, and we're going to develop the same thought, the same process like we did before. Repentance, expiation, and reparation are the three conditions necessary for the facing of a fault and the suppression of its consequences. Repentance mitigates the sufferings of expiation because it opens the door to hope and paves the way to rehabilitation. But it's only reparation that, by destroying the cause of our suffering, can annul the suffering which it is its effect. So those three that are in green up there are the steps for us to be able to forgive. So now, see, we're going up, right? Guilt and resentment. So imagine the non-forgiveness is down here, right? We go up. So now we choose to forgive. We want to forgive. And for us to forgive, The first clue for us is that we need to repent. If we do something to somebody and we think it's okay, we're not going to think we need to do anything about it, right? And a lot of us were very, stubborn, I should say, about that. We are not going to admit our pride is really high, big, and we do not admit that we made a mistake. So why we don't admit we made a mistake? There is no process of forgiveness because we don't think we need it. So we need to repent. And Kardec will use the word repentance, not remorse. And what is the difference here? It's very key difference, very important. If you remember, we talked about remorse. What was the remorse? I did something, I feel guilty, and that gets stuck in my mind, in my heart, and I spin and I think about it, and that doesn't go away. I get paralyzed in that situation, and I can't move, I can't do anything, no action. It's just passive. I just register and then I stay there, right? Like the screw that you go in place like this, and it doesn't go anywhere, right? Well, the repentance, we have the feeling of the guilt, hits us. Oops, made mistake. But right then, it just works as a trampoline, something that will say, you know what? I made a mistake. I need to take care of it. And when we do that, first, it hurts. Don't take me wrong. It's not that we realize, we repent, and oh, okay. No, it hurts. And that is the next step. It's the expiation. The expiation is when I realize that I messed it up, it hurts me, or somebody did to me, right? Remember, guilt or resentment. Somebody did this to me, I realize, and then I go and it hurts. But that hurt is not passive again. That goes with action. And the action is, what was that third word that we heard before? Reparation. So now I'm going to have a plan. I am going to realize what went wrong. I'm going to work on that feeling inside me that is hurting and acknowledge that, but I'm going to use that to help me act in a positive way. And again, now using our spiritual friends, what do we do? How do we connect now? With our spiritual guides, with our guardian angels, because now I have this is my conscience, it's open. I'm not really just going like this and hurting. I know what is happening. I know what I want. I know how hard it is, but I have a plan and I connect to the spirituality and I pray, right? And then we ask those that pray for me, right? We get together and then we help each other in all senses so we can be in this position here of health and growth, spiritual growth. Instead of those diseases, those dysfunctions, those situations that when we talked about at the beginning of those friends that are they are around, they exist, we might not even know they can be our friends at work, right? Because I mean, how do you know if somebody has or not feelings? We don't, because the person can fake. But those friends are those who in that process before, in the dysfunctions, they got stuck there somewhere and will take a few more times to come and clean up the mess that happened, sometimes reincarnations ago. And they have those issues that they're dealing with. And of course, I got an extreme example. Between that example of not feeling at all, we have a bunch in the middle, right? But it's easier sometimes for us to make those contrasts to understand. So we choose here to go up to be healthy and grow spiritually. Well, this path that we chose, we talked about the self forgiveness. We can only be able to forgive others if we're able to forgive ourselves. Sometimes it's harder to forgive ourselves because we do want to be that perfect person one day, right? And we don't like not to be in that situation. And it's very hard that we make the mistake and we are able to forgive ourselves. But that's the path. The same way that if we don't love ourselves, we cannot love others. It's again, it's fake news. If we think we can do that, we have to revisit our values. And here, obviously, we are talking about love, the real love like Jesus taught us, not the love that we still, we're still learning that kind of love. And then once we are able to forgive ourselves, we are able to face the other person, encounter the other person before we ask for forgiveness. Sometimes we just go like this. We're not ready. We don't even know what we are feeling, let alone ask somebody for their forgiveness. That's the relation here. If I don't know what I'm feeling, if I don't know how to deal with that, how can I expect the other person just to give something that I don't even know what it is, right? Or let alone to ask God. Isn't that easy to think that we can just ask God and for forgiveness and done deal? Doesn't work that way. In Spiritism, what we learn is that we cannot give our own responsibility to somebody else. It's me and God. But God cannot grant me something that I'm not ready to get. So we work on that before we even talk to the other person. And then a lot of people say, but I'm trying. The other person does not want to see me. I don't want to. Well, if our hearts, if we're working on our real forgiveness, remember the real forgiveness, not the egoic or the ego or that kind of fake forgiveness. If I'm really at that point that I forgave myself, that I'm able to really understand what I need and I'm ready to offer from my heart, my spirit, and I want to approach that person and the person is not ready or doesn't accept it, then again, we cannot live for the other person and vice versa, because sometimes it's us in that situation, right? We're not immune of anything. And if that happens, it is the other person's responsibility. If we are able to get the forgiveness, both both sides, then forgiveness established, period. We are done. We are free, both sides. Otherwise, sometimes people will go on and on and on, and they are not able to let it go for many, many reincarnations, right? So let's not get there, right? Let's work on our issues. Another situation that comes with forgiveness is the thought of forgetting. So people say, but it says that we should forget. I can't forget. Does that mean I didn't forgive? What is the relationship between those two? So let's see here. We have in the consoler, we have for the conventions of the world, forgiveness means renouncing revenge without the offended person having to completely forget his brother's fault. However, for the evangelized spirit, forgiveness and forgetfulness must go together, although the need for prayer and vigilance prevails for every moment of existence. But let's understand this forgetting part here. And I love this image. For me, it says it all. That kind of forgetting we are able to do because we have a memory. We don't have amnesia, right? So it's not that we forget in the sense of I don't remember anymore, right? Because I remember somebody did. If I think about it, I remember what happened. Does that mean I didn't forgive? Well, it depends on the feeling that I attach to that situation. And a friend of ours who came a few times here, I don't know if you know him, Julio Carvalho, who is from New Jersey, and he came several times to give talks and workshops. He said that imagine somebody punch your face, and then when you're trying working on forgiveness, but until you really forgive, every time you remember that punch, you feel that again. It's almost like every time you feel punched on your face. That is the kind of feeling that once you forgive, you remember that you got punched on the face, of course. But then it doesn't, it's like talking about somebody else. There is no hard feelings. There is no, then you really know you forgave. Does that make sense? Yeah? Okay. So here is like this, we erase, we're able to look and it's still there. It happened. It was not something that it was untrue. We can even draw a new drawing on that paper, but the marks are there. So we have to be aware that when we hurt somebody or we hurt ourselves, we are doing that to ourselves or to somebody else, even though we are forgiven. So that's another level of problem, right? Let's work on our forgiveness first, and then we work on being that better person, also not do things that require forgiveness. And then there is the Lord's Prayer. Forgive, not the whole prayer, but the part that says, forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. And it was interesting to think about uh, our daily forgiveness. I thought our daily bread, our daily forgiveness. That if every day we work, like we said before, in that forgiveness, we'll be able to get more and more out of it. So the way that the suggestion goes is that we follow what the gospel tells us. So happy is he who can sleep at night saying, I have nothing against my neighbor. So that is working on what we said before, right? And this way, we don't require the forgiveness because obviously, in the same prayer, God forgives us unconditionally because, to the to the point that we have all the opportunities in our lives that God gives us for us to continue this path of learning and continue growing. So we talked about God. Let's try to be a little more merciful tonight. And again, here, there's some interesting thoughts for us to think about, and that can help us when we are in the process of trying to forgive somebody or a situation. When we hear something really bad happening, or that has happened in the city, the country, or in the world, and how we can be a little more merciful in thoughts. Okay? So the first thing is, what is his or her positive intention? It is a weird question if somebody did something really bad, right? Remember about what we said before. Somebody wanted to just get rid of the pain. And if sometimes we look at situations, really bad situations, and we look at that spirit and think that what is it there? The person didn't want to really do that just because that person is bad. We don't know. We don't judge, right? Maybe there inside that person has something that is just choosing the wrong way. But we can try to give the benefit of the doubt as a spirit. Did I contribute to that situation? What was my participation? Because sometimes we try to make somebody guilty of something because it's easier on us. So we definitely have some relationship there. What is it that happened? That what did I do? Even indirectly sometimes. What if it were me in that situation? How would I like somebody to treat me if I made that mistake? Right? How would I like to treat myself, for that matter, if I'm not able to forgive myself? If I ask somebody else, another witness, somebody close to that person that knows that person in a different context, what would that person say? Or the witnesses of that situation, but not the ones that are they're going to be in our favor, because we are very smart about that too, right? I'm going to ask those that I know. It's like giving references for work, right? Obviously, we give the ones that we know they're going to say good things about us, not the bad things. So, no, but in a different sense. How did Jesus or another of the mentors, the big guys, would think about it, or do about it, or say about it? And what about that God in me? Notice God is in lowercase, right? That essence in us. What can I say? Our superior being, our ascending person. So this is being merciful to another level that we sometimes can get there. But I thought that was a good idea for us to think about, right? Well, we have some food for thought for us to take, homework for us to think about it. Those others are a little higher level. It's harder for us to think that way. This is for us to go and think about forgiveness and love in ourselves. Be nice with yourself. Love yourself, and you love others more easily. And in this way, you also love God. Replace the words guilt and resentment by the word responsibility. We always talk about guilt and resentment, and we forget that we're all responsible for the things we do, that we say, that we think, and everybody is. So let's, make sure to stop that guilt and resentment. Be jovial, be happy, right? When we are in the situation that we are, in this belief in the words of Jesus, in the words that we learn from the gospel, and we are in the, with among friends, and we have the support, and we have the families, they're all reasons for us to be a happy person, and not to get that, bitterness that guilt and resentment bring with them in our lives. And we came to earth in order to evolve through goodness, not to suffer. Pick always goodness for you to do. Forgiveness is especially good for those who give. Those who give the flowers, if I give the flowers to you, the smell of the flowers will be in my hands. If the person I'm giving the flowers to decided not to accept them, they might just not get them, they might throw it away, but then it's not something that we are able to do anything different about. But the smell of the flowers still be in our hands. So the advice here is for us to keep them, keep the flowers, not keep the smell. Give them and keep when somebody offers to you. Don't throw away. If somebody offers the flower to you, be the one who keep those flowers. Okay, so that's it. Thank you. And I can open for questions or comments. Um, we have time.